Hey guys, so for today's lesson, what we're going to be looking at is we are going to be looking at characterization. So, what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk first about the most dangerous game and how the most dangerous game is kind of unfolds into what we know as characterization. Okay, so let's talk about the most dangerous game first. The Most Dangerous Game by Richard Connell was the story that you should have read in part two under week two this week. Okay, so long story short, what happens? So we have our first protagonist, our main character, Rainsford. And so Rainsford, when we meet him, is on a boat going to Rio, and he is going to go hunt jaguars. And so he's talking with the captain of the boat, Whitney, and he's talking about hunting and how he's this renowned hunter and he does all these great things. Um, and then by the end of the night, he ends up falling off the boat because he hears in the distance a gunshot off of Ship Trap Island. Earlier in the story, we learned from Whitney that Ship Trap Island is this very scary island where apparently there's cannibals that eat people and sailors are terrified of it and it's all this really really spooky folklore that goes with it. Rainsford's like, no, it's fine, I don't believe in that kind of thing. And so he hears a gunshot. Being the hunter that he is, he falls off the boat and then he swims to shore to Ship Trap Island. There, that is when we meet our two other characters, our two antagonists, which are Ivan and General Zaroff. Right? He's going through the jungle. He sees this really creepy scene, like this blood scene. He's like, "It's weird. That doesn't look like an animal I've killed before, and I've hunted every animal. That's weird. Let me go into this house that looks very foreboding and terrifying, and let me see kind of what's going on there." And so we meet Ivan, who's this big brute. He doesn't say anything in the entire story. We don't even know if he's verbal, if he can talk. And then all of a sudden, we see this General Zaroff walking down the staircase, right? And Richard Connell describes him to a T, down to like what his eyebrows look like, right? Very descriptive language over General Zaroff. General Zaroff is also a hunter, right? He's a hunter just like Rainsford. And so they start having a lot of interests, right, that are the same. They start talking about all of their stories of all these different big animals that they've killed, right? But then it starts getting kind of strange, and the reader can kind of pick up that there's not something or something's a little off with General Zaroff. And so what we learn is that General Zaroff started getting bored. He had hunted everything. Nothing was interesting anymore. So what did he start hunting? Started hunting people. All right. And so the reason why he started hunting people is he was like, people are interesting, right? You never know what they're going to do. You can't predict them. Like I can predict animals, right? That's innate instinct, but people, that is a challenge. So what has he been doing? He's been trapping these people that he deems inferior, right? People that basically don't have money or that have been slaves or sailors or things like that. And he kind of sets them loose in the jungle, and he hunts people because that's more fun. What is Rainsford's response? No, fam, bye. Not interested in hanging out with you anymore. I would like to leave the island. Then General Zaroff is like, actually, I think you're gonna stay because these people that I've been hunting, it hasn't been that hard, but I bet you would make it pretty hard because you're a hunter yourself. So General Zaroff gets the idea, what better person to hunt than a prized hunter? So he's like, Rainsford, I'm gonna hunt you. 3 days. What's up? And so Zaroff basically says this very nonchalantly, like it's no big deal. Don't worry, it'll be fine. It'll be great. If you win, you win. Then we can have wine and it's all cool. If you lose, sorry. And so that basically leads us to our big climax of the story, where they are basically dueling out in the jungle. Rainsford's trying to set all of these traps to kind of kill Zaroff, and then ends up kind of getting cornered and jumping off a cliff. We, as the reader, think, oh, that's the end of the story, as General Zaroff goes back to his chateau at the end of day 3, and he pours him a glass of Chablis, and he is going to go to sleep, and then all of a sudden, who shows up in his bedroom? That would be Rainsford. And so we learned that Rainsford snuck back into the chateau somehow because he wants to corner General Zaroff. And so General Zaroff's kind of a taken back. He's like, wow, good job. I guess the game's over. And what is Rainsford's response? I'm still a beast at bay, is what he says. And so then what happens? General Zaroff says, okay, whoever wins this little fight will get to sleep in this bed. Whoever loses will be a repast for my hounds, which a repast is basically dinner. And the last line, the reader has to really infer what happens because we're not really told, but it says that Rainsford had never slept in a better bed, he decided. And so that shows us that who won? Rainsford won in the end. So, what we're going to do with this story is we are going to be looking at how we can look at characterization specifically in the story, because that's what we like to do with all of our short stories. Yes, we like to look at a lot of the themes and things like that, and we'll discuss a lot of themes. But we're going to be looking at each short story through a specific lens. Okay, so the lens that we're looking at for this week is characterization. Okay. So, really quickly, what is a short story? A short story is going to have four things. It's going to have conflict, it's going to have dialogue that's believable, it's going to have some type of suspense, and then it's going to develop characters. So, this developed characters right here, that's what we're focusing on this week. Right? So, this is a basic plot diagram. You guys have probably remembered these from what you learned last year in 8th grade. So you have your exposition, rising action, climax of a story, falling action, and denouement, or also known as the resolution. Okay, so let's kind of break this down. So we have the exposition, which is the start of the story. So this is before everything gets started. It's when the characters are being introduced. That's where the setting is developed. All of these things. Then you have the rising action. This is maybe one or two conflicts. You start kind of seeing how the climax is going to unfold. Things like that. The climax, which is the most intense part of the story. So sometimes my students will think, oh, well, Ransford falling off the boat is, the climax. Is it really? Because I would think that the by far the most intense part of the story is when he decides that he is going to be hunted. Okay, so that would be the climax of the most dangerous game, and then the falling action, and then the resolution. All right, this is the end of the story when everything's tied up in a big bow at the very end. Okay, so there's two different ways that an author can develop characters, right? And it's one is direct characterization, and then there's indirect characterization. Direct characterization is very simple for the reader. So look at this character Ava. An example of direct characterization was if I were to write Ava is smart. Okay, so that tells you what is Ava? Ava is smart. Very black and white, very, oh, this is what she is. Indirect characterization is what we practice now that we're more advanced readers. Okay, this is when it's not directly stated the type of character Ava is, but it's kind of written in between the lines and we have to infer. And there's 5 different ways that a author can do this. Okay, speech, thoughts, effects, actions, and looks. So let's kind of break those down. So speech is what does the character say? How do they speak? Thoughts is what is revealed through their private thoughts or feelings. Effect is what is revealed through the character's effect on other people. Okay, so how do other characters feel or behave in reaction to this character? Actions, so what does the character do? And then looks, what does the character physically look like, right? And how do they dress, things like that. Okay, so let's break these down individually. So speech, okay? So there's 2 different things that you can look at when you're looking at an indirect characterization through speech. It's what they say and how they say it, okay? So let me highlight this for you. So if they use complex language, okay, so they're using a lot of high vocabulary words or very complex, confusing language. Maybe they're intelligent, maybe they're smart, maybe that they're educated. That's something that we can infer based on the type of words that they're using. If they swear, so if they use a lot of cuss words in the story, maybe they're really angry, or maybe they're a crude character. If they talk a lot in the story, so they have a lot of dialogue, what can we learn? Well, maybe they're social, or maybe they're nervous. Also, what they don't say says a lot about them as well. So if they say very little words, they don't talk at all, maybe they're introverted or timid. Think about Ivan. Ivan doesn't say anything at all. What can we learn based on the fact that Ivan doesn't say anything about his character? Maybe he's not educated. Okay, maybe he is very shy. Maybe he's scared of General Zaroff, so he's scared to say anything. If they avoid talking about a specific crime, maybe they are guilty. Okay, so what they don't say is also just as important as what they do say. Now, let's think about how they say it. Okay, so with this, you're looking at the accent, the voice tone, the speed, and any other attributes of speaking that tells about the character. Okay, so if they speak in a very refined accent, like our General Zaroff does, okay, they may be very wealthy or privately educated. And we learn that that is something that Zaroff is. Okay, a person who speaks very quickly, maybe they are very nervous or they can't. They think visually and they're just very extroverted and they're just trying to get all the information out as possible. A person that has a deep, rough voice, maybe they spend a lot of time outdoors. Maybe they're very manly or strong or, very broody. If they hesitate a lot, okay, if they're like, but, and they stutter, maybe they're unsure or maybe that they're lying, okay? So think about how they say and what that says about our character, okay? And then thoughts, okay? So thoughts can be broken down into two parts as well. So you have thinking and then you have feeling. So kind of those almost kind of meld perfectly together. And I like to give the example of this, okay? If you have a burning building, okay, and somebody drives by the burning building and they're thinking to themselves, oh my gosh, I hope no one's hurt. I hope everyone's okay. Is there anything I can do? And they're thinking all of this in their head as the character. What do we learn? We learn that they're very kind. They have a big heart for people. They're very empathetic and they're helpful. Now take that same character in that same burning building, but change the thoughts. So they're driving past the burning building, and what do they think? That's funny. I'm so glad that building's burning down. I hated that building. Well, what did we learn about the character based on their thoughts and feelings about the burning building? We learned that they're heartless, rude, maybe something traumatic has happened to them. They don't have a very big heart for other people. They don't think about other people's feelings. So, just based on how that one character views the fact that a house is on fire, okay, that shows a lot about a character as well. Okay. Now let's look at effect. Okay. So effect on others is very interesting and it's one of my favorite ways to analyze a character. Effect on others is when the character that you're analyzing, you're actually looking at the characters that are surrounding that character. So in class, I like to show this video up here, which I can't play it on Screencastify, so I'll kind of explain it to you guys. It's a clip from Safe Haven where we have this girl, Erin. All right, and she is making dinner for her husband, and she is very scared. And so I always tell my students to look at the husband. Okay, they are trying to analyze the husband and figure out what type of character the husband is. And so what they're doing is they're watching Aaron the whole time because Aaron, his wife, is very scared, doesn't want to talk to him, is very nervous, walks kind of away from him, kind of shies away, and he questions her very harshly. So, based on her reactions, we learn that he's not a good guy. He's a scary man. He's abusive. They do not have a good relationship. Nothing in the video shows us that he's abusive, but we learn that based on how his wife is responding to him, based on how he affects another character. Okay, so with this, think about how are other characters reacting through their emotions? All right, does another character feel happy around your character? Do they feel nervous? Are they excited to see your character? And then think about their reactions. All right, are they popular? Are they alone? Are they a leader, a follower? Do they help others or do they ignore them? Okay, so effect on others is looking at how other characters respond to your character. So, for example, if we're looking at Rainsford, let's look at how General Zaroff greets Rainsford. He welcomes him, right? He's like, "Oh my gosh, you! I've read your book about hunting. This is amazing. Please come into my home." So, what did we learn about Rainsford? we learn that Rainsford, okay, people know this guy. He's a famous hunter. He's someone to be respected. And he's somebody that I would want to welcome into my home if he was a complete stranger. So we learned all of that based on the fact that General Zaroff greeted him that way. Okay, so we looked at somebody else in order to figure out their character. All right, actions, pretty self explanatory for students to understand, okay? So, actors or actions are basically what drives a person to think and feel and interact with others the way that they do, okay? So, what a person does really kind of determines what their character is like. So, let's go back to that burning building analogy, right? So if we have a character driving past the burning building and they get out immediately and they rush into the burning building to see if anyone's in there, what did the action of them getting out of their car to go into a burning building, what did that teach us? That teaches us that they are brave, that they're courageous, that they want to help others. Now, again, take the same character driving in a car. He sees the burning building, but he doesn't get out of the car and he keeps driving. What does the action of him not getting out of his car to run into a burning building tell us? That tells us that maybe he's scared, all right, and he is too nervous. Maybe that tells us that he is late, he's busy, and he doesn't think about other people. Um, Maybe he is angry at the fact that something's happened in that house. And so he's like, I don't care what happens. Okay. So actions can teach you a lot about a character as well. Okay. And then the very last one is looks. So I know that we are told at a very young age to not judge a book by its cover. It's a great philosophy for life. Do not use it when you read, okay? So for readers, it is very important to think visually, okay? And authors use visual types of writing, imagery, to really explain characters, okay? So look at this middle character right here. So let me get my highlighter for you guys. Look at this middle character. So this is a clip from the movie Mean Girls, if you've never seen it. And this is a character called Regina George. Okay, so I like to have my students kind of start thinking in your mind, what is this character like? Kind of look at her clothes, look at her face. What do you see? Do you think she's a nice character or is she a mean character? Typically, my students can always depict pretty easily, oh, she's mean. She's rude. Nobody likes her. Well, how? How can you tell that? Her face is really scrunched up. She's dressed kind of like a popular, bossy, mean girl that society's kind of already depicted out for us. She's got her back to her friends. Everyone else is looking at her kind of like they're afraid of her. Okay. So, just based on her looks, we can kind of infer what she's like as a character. Okay. So, your assignment for today is going to be looking at the character General Zaroff, and you're going to be looking at how he is characterized in the Most Dangerous Game. Okay, so let's do this chart for Rainsford. So, I did an example for you. Okay, so, and I will say, authors do not have to use all five types of steel. They can use one type if they want. They can just develop a character through their speech, or they can just develop a character through their actions. For example, we never learn what Rainsford looks like. Okay, so this last little part, we can't fill in that box for Rainsford because through the entire story, we never know. Is he tall? Is he short? Does he have a beard? What does he dress like? What does he wear? Does he have a gun on him? We don't learn these things about Rainsford because that's not how Richard Connell chooses to develop him. Which, if you think back to what I said earlier, Richard Connell does develop General Zaroff by his looks. Remember, there's two long descriptive paragraphs just of what General Zaroff looks like. Okay, so very, very descriptive language about how to visualize General Zaroff, but not for Rainsford. Okay, when in retrospect, we get to see a lot of Rainsford's thoughts. Right, there's lots of quotes that we can pick out to show what Rainsford is thinking, and we can learn about him. But we never get to see what General Zaroff is thinking. So that's not a way that he's developed, and that's okay. So our job as a reader is to use this chart to figure out how an author developed a character. Okay, so for Rainsford, the one example that I picked out was speech. Okay, so for speech, it says a piece of evidence that I picked out. It says, "I will not lose my nerve. I will not." This is a something that Rainsford says. So what do we learn? Okay, we learn that he is determined. He will not lose his nerve. He is going to fight. He is going to continue to fight against General Zaroff. We learn that he's determined. How? Because of this quote, because of his speech. Okay, so what you guys are going to do, all right, you're going to go into Thrivist and you're going to click on week 2, task 3, which is where you found this video. So you've already halfway there. There is another YouTube video of how to submit this assignment because this assignment is going to be done on a Google Doc, okay? And so watch that video. I give you step-by-step instructions of how to complete this assignment, but I want you to complete this chart for General Zaroff, okay? And I want you to pick as many examples as you have time for. Okay, so if you find some good, there's lots of good evidence about General Zaroff's speech. Pick a quote where he's describing, where he is saying something in the text, and tell me what you can learn as a reader about him. So a good example would be when he's talking about, oh, well, you don't value human life, right? I mean, they're just people. What do we learn? We learn that he is cold-hearted, okay, from that quote. So you're going to do this for all different 5 parts, okay? And then you will submit the URL link from the Google Doc into Thrivist. Again, this I give you step-by-step instructions of how to do this on your on the video that you should watch before you start this assignment. Okay, and make sure that you have all of your other tasks completed before you sign off. All right. So if you have any other questions, please let me know, and I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye, guys.